Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to our inaugural streams that we're actually running outside of the United States and out of Australia. Welcome back to our AWS Sydney Summit live event. Joining myself, Jared Spiegel, Solutions Architect for Amazon Web Services. I'm joined by the illustrious Dr. Pete Stansky.
Hey guys.
And we also have a very special guest here as well. Joining us from our professional services team is a cloud architect by the name of Reza Hasham. Now, Reza, you recently did a talk at Dev Central over in the Dev Bytes Lounge. Would you be able to give us a quick synopsis about what that talk was about?
Yeah, of course. Yes, I literally just before did a talk on building serverless compliance as code. So I'm pretty passionate about this topic. Essentially, what I covered was you can use AWS config, which is a service that we have. AWS config is essentially your modern day CMDB, right? It actually tracks all of your configuration changes, the history of the configuration changes, so you can deep dive on the history as well as relationships between the resources. And a cool feature of AWS config is the config rules, which is essentially a logical way of coding your compliance standards or regulations. So it can be specific to your particular industry using custom rules. So essentially what you're doing is evaluating compliance standards against the configuration changes that AWS config measures. Just to add to that really quickly also is a part of the talk was also to focus on AWS Amazon Guard Duty, I should say.
So what is Guard Duty, by the way?
Yeah, listen, let me tell you a little bit about that. So Guard Duty is actually AWS's intelligent threat detection service. It, on a continuous basis, monitors your AWS environment for malicious or unauthorized activities and notifies you if it finds anything.
Awesome.
So what I wanted to show in my talk earlier was how you can use AWS config and config rules to essentially write logic that looks and sees whether Guard Duty is enabled. And it's if it isn't enabled, it'll say that, hey, this rule and this resource is non-compliant, and then you can go and take corrective measures to ensure that it is compliant and Guard Duty is always on in your environment.
So Reza, we've got a really diverse audience tuning in today. We've got lots of folks asking questions. So by the way, if you guys have any questions for Reza or any of us, please ensure you ask specifically for that. I know we have some ninja moderators at the moment answering your questions, but if you want us to answer something, don't be afraid to ask. And in fact, I've got my kids listening to the show. So
big shout out to Ethan and Brody.
I hope you guys have listened to your mom today.
Yeah.
Listen to your mom.
So tell us, in terms that most people could understand, why is compliance important to our customers?
So in obviously current day and age, we definitely do have to adhere to a lot of standards and regulations based on the industry that we're in.
Right.
And what I see a lot of customers doing is manually managing all of those
in spreadsheets, right?
in spreadsheets.
So
and
old school stuff.
Tedious, managing that, making sure it's up to date, spending time firefighting to ensure that you're adhering to those controls and standards. I guess the great thing about config or AWS config as a service is that it takes away a lot of that manual work.
Heavy lifting, right?
And that undifferentiated heavy lifting, most definitely.
Okay, so I work with a lot of enterprise customers, and oftentimes, everyone has their own different compliance rules. What's normal for one organisation is completely abnormal for other organisations. What mechanisms do organisations or even customers have to be able to define custom rules within AWS config?
Yeah, that's a great question, because what I introduced earlier in the talk as well is AWS Config Rules Development Kit, or RDK.
It's pretty cool. Yeah.
Which is really cool. It's actually open source. It's available in AWS Labs GitHub at the moment. So
people can contribute back to it if they want to make changes to themselves. They can do a pull request. We can evaluate that and perhaps improve the product as well.
Most definitely. So it's actually in beta at the moment, and it's getting features added to it on a regular basis, and that's driven by you, right? So feel free to use it and give us the feedback so we can continue iterating on that.
Perfect.
So what the RDK is essentially it's built, it's a command line utility tool. It's there to really rapidly be able to prototype and develop custom config rules.
Okay. And how do I get it onto my machine? How fast can I go from nothing to something?
Yes, okay, so it's all there. The documentation is there on AWS Labs on GitHub, but essentially it's Python backed, so you can just do a pip install and you just use it from your command line in your machine.
So one line, get it installed. So how do I get started if I'm a developer? Because we're a lot of developers. If I'm a dev, how do I codify my Excel spreadsheet rules and now do it in software, maybe using Lambda?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah?
So AWS config custom rules essentially uses Lambda, where you can codify your logic in there. And what the rules development kit does is it actually just makes it 5 times faster for you to be able to build those custom
5 times,
rules.
so why 5?
So interesting enough, at reInvent last year, we did a huge boot camp using the RDK to see how much faster it would be, and the measure that we came up with, it actually was that much faster. It probably took about 2 to 3 hours for a lot of the people in there to be building the
nice.
A custom rule. Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, so going back to some of my enterprise customers, what's the best way for them to get started translating some of those business requirements around compliance into actual config rules that can be deployed within their environments?
Yes, of course. So
we've got a slide on that,
we've
right?
got a slide on that. Yeah.
Here's one we prepared earlier.
We like flywheels, don't we?
Yes, we do like flywheels. So
here's one we put earlier.
Yes. So here's the compliance as code flywheel. And then this is essentially what we see out there in the enterprises amongst our customers.
So walk us through it.
Yeah, let's walk you through it. So the first step is to get start developing a playbook, which is all of your use cases and abuse cases.
And knock on wood, hopefully you've already got some in your enterprise, so you're not starting from scratch.
That's
you're just going to rework what you've already got.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Okay.
So essentially, once you've got that documented, you start to create controls around that based on your regulations and standards. So here is where the RDK comes in. You can start to use that. There's a very systematic way of doing that, where it's best practice to do this, where you outline, your goals. What is it that you're actually trying to achieve?
Looking for,
what
so
are you looking for?
Yeah?
Exactly. Outlining the test cases. So in this situation, this would be compliant. In these situations, this would not be compliant.
Got it.
So that's the codification side of it. And then moving on to the engine. So what you want to do is integrate this into a mechanism to handle deviations. And the config engine is a great example, which we'll come to in a little bit.
Okay,
Let's talk about that. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then essentially being able to measure the effectiveness off of that, right? And what you want to do it is a flywheel, so you're iterating back to that playbook. So what you find from the metrics, you essentially use that to iterate that playbook, and you continue
evolve it over time.
Evolve it over time.
Okay,
That's right.
so I'm a simple solutions architect. I'm not a developer. I don't know the first thing about Python, but
yes, you do.
Well, I do. But if I didn't know anything about Python or Lambda, what would be great ways for me to actually get started with actually going down this journey to be able to actually put some of these compliance frameworks that we need to have in our organisation into effect?
Yes. We have a lot of great resources out there. So AWS.training is one. There's a lot of training on there on Lambda. There are also great developer guides that you can start reading on. So Boto 3, which is our SDK for Python, as well as essentially reading up on serverless and how serverless works, as well as the developer guide on Lambda. The other great resources.
Is there anything offered by the likes of a Cloud Guru and other training sponsors and supporters of the AWS Summit event that we've got?
Yeah, so I really like the Cloud Guru course on Python. They also
they're actually here walking around. So big shout out to you guys.
Yeah. The other side of it is you can also always come to us for help, right? There are AWS partners, professional services, and we would be more than happy to assist you.
And solution architects who do code, right? So just to go back and get geek out for another few more minutes. So when I get started, the benefit of going 5 times faster, because you guys give me like all this scaffolding code for my Python code as an example to quickly plug into the rules engine.
Yes.
Right. So that's kind of awesome.
Yeah, it really is actually. So whereas previously you would have had to build functions around how to create the evaluations, do changes from API to original invocation models. You would have
wiring
had to
it into Lambda, right?
Exactly, wiring into Lambda, making sure that the results token, etc., is being sent to config. All of that is in there. You literally just have to go in there and just put in your logic.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah. So again, considering my enterprise customer, I've got all these config rules that are defined in their reporting. They're sending alerts. Can I integrate those alerts with some of my other systems that I use, say, for security analysis?
About 10 minutes. Please take your seats.
Apologies. Take our seats.
It's about to go.
The gods have spoken, right? This is live, everybody, so you're going to get lots of background noise.
Yes, so check out the AWS config partner page.
Yeah.
You'll notice there are a lot of AWS partners that actually offer services that seamlessly integrate with AWS config. So yes, that's a very great resource to see through which partners are present that you can integrate with. So most easily done, definitely.
Yeah, I'm actually a big fan of AWS config because it gives us this really great visibility and relationships over time, how I've attached or detached network interfaces, EBS volumes.
Yeah.
It's an amazing 21st century CMDB. Handles auto-scaling, which most static CMDBs could never cope with.
Yeah.
So these rules are fantastic.
It's a one-stop shop in a way, isn't it, for your resources to be able to see where they're at.
Awesome. So I know we're geeking out for a bit, but you do a lot more than just be a geek, like the rest of us. So you do a lot of women in IT work, and you've been quite heavily involved over time, doing some really cool stuff. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that, when the gods let us speak?
They're letting us speak right now. Yes, I am very passionate about women in IT and women in technology, and any opportunity that I can find to promote that, such as mentoring in hackathons, working with the Vic ICT, because I'm from Victoria.
That's in Australia, so down under,
as well as any chance to speak, into meetups, etc. Any way I can promote technology, women in technology,
So can I give you a plug?
What you're really saying is when we do more things on Twitch out in Australia and when we have more content coming, we're going to have you on more often.
Yes. So there's a call out for everybody. If you guys want Razor to speak at any of your Women in IT events, give her a shout. Reach out to us. You can do it live right now via our moderators, and that's awesome.
Thank you so much.
Very exciting.
Very exciting.
So going back on topic, and that's nice. I'm still thinking about my enterprise customers, and sorry, we're customer obsessed, and
we're going to toe back and forth.
Back and forth, yeah. So many of my customers have not even dozens, even hundreds of accounts in rather complex environments. Can this be deployed across multiple accounts really in an easy and effective manner that's easy to manage? It is. It's a huge deal.
Yes. So I would love to point out with that question the AWS config-compliance-as-code engine. So AWS Professional Services have actually built this based on what we've required or what customers have asked for multi-account environments.
We've seen lots of that. We've got customers like hundreds of accounts, right? Not just one, but literally triple digits, right?
So it's open source. It's available on AWS Labs GitHub. Feel free to go and check it out. But what it essentially does for you, it really seamlessly handles multi-account deployments. It takes about 10 minutes to deploy.
Oh, really? That's it?
Okay. Yes, it takes about 10 minutes to deploy. It's completely serverless. What it does, the features that it essentially offers is a great visualization tool using QuickSights, which is our business integration tool.
Yeah.
And you can visualize all of your multiple accounts where your compliance is at that point in time. It also really strongly adheres to best practice, such as PCI.
Very important for our customers who are doing financial enterprises, credit card handling,
any sort of payment card information or data or personal information even.
Yes, as well as high availability
architecture. So do I have to set up any special account IAM trusts or anything?
It handles a lot of that for you. So feel free to
deployment in those first 10 minutes, it does all that for me?
Yeah, so feel free to go check it out, yes.
And it costs me nothing.
It's free. It's free. It's open source. Only what you pay for what the resources that you're using.
Which you consume, right?
Which you consume.
And we're big on that. Pay only for what you use, hopefully for what you need. So don't spend up too much.
Exactly, that's true.
Key messages.
And just lastly, is there any way I can find out more about compliance as code in general? How can I keep up to date with things going forward?
There's a lot happening in this space. Feel free to check out our AWS blogs. So every time we're actually in the process of building out in full steam a lot of AWS managed rules. So essentially we've got a team, sort of
dedicated to
it. Yeah, that's actually working on it. So keep an eye out on AWS blogs. When new managed rules are out, we would be putting that on there, as well as keep in touch with us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so the solution architects, the professional services, and yes, we'll be more than happy to assist
Any
you.
other videos people can watch to get more insights?
Yes, thank you for reminding me. I
That's all
almost
right.
forgot that. So there is a great reInvent video from last year on how to build a serverless compliance as code at scale, and it really talks about the journey that customers can take as well. So that's a great place to start.
Well, we're going to wrap up in a moment, but are there any other questions that we've got from the audience? We'd just like to call that up immediately. But in the meantime, while we're doing that, I would like to thank you very much for your time. It's been a pleasure having you up here on stage.
It's the first time we've done this in Australia, right? So it's great to have you on the show.
It's a privilege.
Putting Australia on the Twitch map, and Summit live streaming is a big deal for us. We've got the whole crew over here, and you know what? I'm going to show you something. Sorry I had to duck under, but who would have thought that all three of us would be actually having makeup on our faces?
Loves this, I have to say. It is very much
I've had Kim, who's been helping out, dabbing my face, and I think I've breathed in more makeup than I'm actually wearing. So have you got any questions?
Have you
got any questions? Come on, guys, last call for any questions. Horizon's here. He's going to give us some awesome
either that
answers if you have any.
Even if you don't have questions that immediately come to mind, you can email them to aws-twitch@amazon.com. The moderators will put that email address in chat so that if questions come to you, say 2 hours from now, by all means, flick off an email to that and our team will actually respond. We'll do their best to respond with the information that you actually require, but we can set up a dialogue and give you some more information as you need it. Again, thank you very much for being on stage with us. To everyone out there who is streaming this feed, we should be back in around about an hour's time. We're going to probably grab a bite to eat, I think.
Yes, that's right.
We've got a couple of sessions, though, over our lunch break here during AWS Sydney Summit. So we'll see you all soon. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys. Tune in again soon. Thanks for being here. Ciao.
Bye.